Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Brandis, and I'm with the Colorado Small Business Development Center Network's SBDC TechSource Commercialization Program. I'd like to welcome you all today to NASA's SBIR STTR programs. Very briefly, I'd like to introduce you to our state's TechSource Commercialization Program. This program is designed to support science and technology ventures throughout Colorado. Businesses are pre-startup through advanced second stage, so if you have an innovative technology, you're likely a fit for the program regardless of your stage of business. SBDC TechSource Commercialization focuses especially on sources of non-dilutive capital where there's no equity given, technology commercialization, and SBIR STTR grants. We also cover R&D tax credits, government accounting, IP protection, access to capital, and market research. We provide customized expert consulting at no cost to you, as well as relevant workshops, events, and accelerator programs. A new program we've added is Red Team Review, which provides professional guidance and a final review of a company's SBIR or STTR proposal prior to submitting it to the participating federal agency. NASA is actually the first agency we're focusing on in 2023. After this webinar, if you're interested in meeting one-on-one with an SBDC TechSource specialist, attending events, workshops, or webinars, or learning more about our Red Team Review program, please visit our website. It's at sbdc-techsource.org in order to get started. The resources we have are available thanks to support from SBA's FAST program, Visa, the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, and the City of Boulder. Just a few quick things. After this webinar, if you're interested in meeting one-on-one with an SBDC TechSource specialist, again, or attending events, workshops, or webinars, do visit our website at sbdc-techsource.org. If you are located outside the state of Colorado, we encourage you to check out your local SBDC and resources for your individual state. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive an email following today's presentation with a link to the recording, as well as a copy of today's presentation slides. A few housekeeping items. Everyone is currently on mute. If you have questions, please type them into the chat bar. We'll try to get to them at the end of today's session. We're going to be leaving ample time for Q&A today with Carol. We're also having her colleague at the Program Management Office, Allison Mutter, help us today with the Q&A portion. I'd now like to introduce you to today's webinar presenter, Dr. Carol Lewis. Dr. Lewis is the manager of JPL's SBIR program and also the NASA SBIR Science Mission Directorate Liaison, or MDL. She ensures the relevance and success of the JPL team's activities. As MDL, she supports the Science Mission Directorate representatives in SBIR solicitation and portfolio activities and in providing program oversight guidance, which reflects NASA's science technology needs and priorities. Prior to November 2018, she was JPL's SBIR STTR Center Technology Transition Lead, which included planning, developing, and implementing activities to assure that the program produced technologies that support NASA and JPL missions, and collaborating towards their commercialization. Dr. Lewis holds a PhD in inorganic chemistry from MIT and a BS in chemistry from Yale University. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Lewis. Thanks so much for presenting today.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to present an overview of NASA's SBIR and STTR programs. Okay, next slide. Okay, first and foremost, a quick overview of what's involved with NASA SBIR and STTR. And like most of the SBIR and STTR programs for federal agencies, we have phase 1 and phase 2, where phase 1 is idea generation, proof of concept, and then phase 2, which is a competitive down select from phase 1, is prototype development, hardware or software, depending on the technical area. And if you get both a phase 1 and a phase 2, you can get up to $1 million between the two of them, $150K for phase 1 and $850K for phase 2. And NASA also has several different opportunities for post phase 2. And depending on the specific opportunity and how much matching funding from a third-party investor you have, you can get up to nearly $3 million or more, $3 million or more for post-phase 2. And in parallel with phase 1, and also in parallel with some of the post-phase 2 opportunities, are 2 programs. We have I-Corps and we have TABA, Technical and Business Assistance, and those can help you out with marketing plan development, business development in parallel. So that's funding which is in addition to phase 1 and phase 2. There's also phase 3, which is not funded by the SBIR or STTR programs, but that would be funded by any one of a variety of external sources. It might be a NASA program or project, it might be a program or project from another federal agency, or it might be private sector funding, and that would be to facilitate an infusion or a commercialization. So the post-phase 2 opportunities, there are 3 particular ones that our program sponsors. One of them is called phase 2E, and there used to be a variant of it called phase 2X. And phase 2E is an option on the phase 2 contract, and that's for an extension of the research and development. And that requires matching funding from a third-party investor of your choice. And you can get up to $375K of funding from the program, and with the matching funding, that comes to up to roughly $750K. On the higher TRL end of the spectrum is the Commercialization Readiness Program, the CCRPP, and as you can tell by the dollar amount, the floor is much higher. This is higher TRL. This is not an extension of the R&D. This is funding which is explicitly for an identified infusion or commercialization, and to bridge the gap, the so-called valley of death. And CCRPP, the floor is $500K, and if you have a need and a credible proposal and a third-party investor, can go up to about $2.5 million. Then finally, there's phase 2 sequential. This is an occasional opportunity in the program. It's not necessarily every year. The award amount varies, the technical need areas vary. And in the past, some of these sequentials have been the same size as normal phase 2s, and in some cases they've been larger, significantly larger, several $1 million. Next slide. We often get asked, what's the difference between SBIR and STTR? They're related programs. They're both in the public law, and NASA is one of the 5 agencies that participates in both SBIR and STTR. The main difference is that for SBIR, the default is that all the funding goes to the small business, whereas for STTR, you as a small business have to formally partner with a research institution, which is usually, but not always, a university. And another difference is that the topics and subtopics in SBIR they're in direct support of NASA's mission directorates, such as the Science Mission Directorate. And on the other hand, STTR topics and subtopics they're much more center-centric. They're derived from specific technology gaps that NASA's 10 centers have. You also probably noticed on the previous slide that the performance period for phase 1 is longer for STTR. Phase 1 for STTR is 13 months, whereas for SBIR it's 6 months. And that's because to accommodate the academic calendar for universities. And it sometimes takes a while to get universities on contract, and also accommodating things like summer breaks, student schedules, so on and so forth. For SBIR, the PI has to be over 50% employed by the small business, whereas for STTR, the PI can be an employee of either the small business or the research institution. Next slide. Okay, here's an overview of the process, and I'll use the most recent one, 2022, is an example. And some of you may have been involved in the process in terms of submitting proposals to 2022, in which case this will look familiar. So the solicitation was released in January 2022, then 2 months for proposal submissions, then 2 more months for the internal set of proposal reviews and then selection. The awards were announced, the phase 1 awards were announced in May of 2022. Then roughly 2 more months for contract negotiations, and the phase 1 contract started in July of 2022. And now the window has just opened for phase 2 proposal submission for the phase 1 awardees. And the phase 2 proposals will be due in late January, which is the contract end date for the phase 1s. Next slide. In terms of who is eligible to join in the program, the odds are pretty much, if you're on this call, you're eligible. But just to clarify, the focus of the SBIR and STTR programs is on research and development, technology development. So not engineering, not commercial off the shelf. This is R&D. And you need to be a small business with 500 employees or less and legally established in the US. And the full criteria, if you're interested, is on the public website, the NASA SBIR public website. If you're doing an STTR, your partner, the research institution, must be located and based in the US, and they can be a nonprofit college or university. They can be a domestic nonprofit research organization, or they can be an FFRDC. And we get asked all the time, what about JPL? JPL being NASA's FFRDC. And the answer is that we cannot participate in, JPL cannot participate in NASA STTR because we participate in managing the program, and we can't be on both sides of the fence. We can, however, participate in STTRs with other government agencies. And if it turns out, if you do your homework and your exploration, and if NASA turns out to not be the right fit for you, either SBIR or STTR, there's 10 other government agencies that participate in SBIR. There are 4 others that participate in STTR, and you might want to check those out. Next slide. Okay, what do you gain by participation in SBIR and or STTR? The primary purpose of these programs is to provide early stage funding for R&D, and as noted on one of the earlier slides, between phase 1 and phase 2, the total up to $1 million, and then if you also participate in post phase 2, up to nearly an additional $3 million or more. And the program as a whole takes no equity, and you keep your intellectual property, which is that's important compared to many other potential sources of R&D funding. You get to work with NASA experts on developing your technology, and you get to expand your network. You get to put your foot in the door in terms of potential future work with NASA programs and also programs from other government agencies. If you participate in parallel in I-Corps or TABA or both, you can also expand your business development skills and your marketing skills in conjunction. And you get to work with NASA, and NASA's a great place to be with. Next slide. Okay, in terms of what, if you're doing an STTR, in terms of the benefits to the research institution, the primary advantage is it's a clear-cut path to turn the cutting-edge research, especially if it's being developed in a university, but from any qualified research institution, to turn cutting-edge research into technology with potential applications, potential real-world applications. And advantages for faculty, you get a gold mine of research data for potential publication in the future. You get to expose your students to projects, a lot of really exciting projects that could lead to future employment. And you get to foster innovation and entrepreneurship among your students as well. And more advantages for students, golden opportunity to work on state-of-the-art, cutting-edge research projects, and to acquire experience that might lead to future employment in the field that they're interested in going into. Next slide. And if you're a small business and you're debating whether to team up with a research institution, what are the advantages to you as a small business? You get to feed off of their groundbreaking ideas that are waiting to transition out of the lab and go into applications. You get access to state-of-the-art facilities, which many universities and colleges have, and their lab equipment. STTR is also, there's a little less competition in STTR historically than SBIR, so the odds of winning an award are a little higher in STTR. And to illustrate, in SBIR, roughly 1 of 5 phase 1 proposals gets awarded, and the percentage is somewhat higher in STTR. And you get to work with highly qualified students and professors. You get to experience their expertise. You get to grow your network within academia, and you also get a pool of talented students who potentially might want to work for your company. Next slide. For either STTR or SBIR, if you're interested, you can partner with a minority serving institution. In STTR, this would be the MSI would be your partner research institution. In SBIR, although you're not obligated to subcontract funds as a small business, you can. And if you look in the solicitation, you can see the details. And in phase 1, if you're interested, you can subcontract up to 1/3 of your funding. And in phase 2, you can subcontract up to half. So if you're interested in either case in partnering with an MSI, check out the MSI Exchange, and this is a platform for a wide variety of people, small companies, large companies, NASA and other agency researchers, and MSI staff to check out each other's capabilities and connect and collaborate. And the website is there if you're interested. And there's also the MSI STEM Research and Development Consortium. And this is a collective of researchers and collaborative partners from MSIs and other universities and colleges and private industry. So you're welcome to join that and expand your network. And in process, the MSRDC, the R&D consortium, they're currently developing a database of capabilities and a collaboration platform. It's going to be called the NASA Research Platform, and the goal is going to be to connect up MSIs with small companies. So when that goes live, you'll be able to register for it. And depending on who your MSI partner is, if they have not had experience with STTR or SBIR, you might want to encourage them to apply to the STTR solicitation. This is separate from the regular SBIR and STTR solicitations. It's basically 0 to help MSIs prepare for phase 1. Next slide. Okay, some data in terms of, you're probably interested in what the breakdown was for the 2022 phase 1 awards. And 257 small businesses and 41 research institutions, and covering quite a large percentage of the U.S. 39 states and Washington, D.C. had awardees. So this is definitely a nationwide program. We often get asked, what's the average size of companies that get awarded? And 80% of the awards were to companies with less than 50 employees. And diversity is a big deal, very important for our program. We take it very seriously. And in 2022, for phase one, 25% of the awarded small businesses were from underrepresented groups, including women-owned and minority-owned businesses. So that's a piece of data that we're very proud of. And for STTR, 24%, just under 1/4 of the research institutions were MSIs. We often get asked also, if you're a company that's relatively new to SBIR, do you stand a chance? And the answer is yes, you absolutely do. And out of the 257 small businesses that were awarded, 78% of them were first-timers, companies selected for their very first SBIR STTR award. And in total, 333 proposals were selected for phase one funding, most of them SBIR, but also a nice handful of STTR proposals. Next slide. Okay, our pride and joy in terms of infusion. If you have a successful technology, there are many opportunities for technology infusion into NASA programs and projects. And here is just one example. This is the Mars 2020 Perseverance rover. And on the rover, alive and well and functioning, are 8 technologies from 7 companies that are on the rover. And you probably notice some of the company names here. There are companies such as Yardney and Honeybee that, I mean, of course, they've graduated from the SBIR program. They were acquired, and they are now very successfully moving on to bigger and better projects. But the technologies that are on the Perseverance rover were originally developed under SBIR funding, and so the roots of those technologies are with the SBIR program. Next slide. Okay, a couple of more examples of success stories from the program. Here's one from Tendig, which is located in Louisville, Colorado, and they attribute $45 million in revenue to SBIR-related developments that support NASA and commercial space missions. They originally started out as a technology consulting company, and then over the years, they grew into a provider of space antennas and deployable structures that help improve observations of the Earth. So very valuable to NASA's Earth science programs. And they received phase 2E and phase 3 funding from NASA's Surface Deformation and Change study. And they had NASA SBIR matching funds on the 2E. They've contributed technology to a variety of NASA and commercial Earth science research projects, and they've also supported Lockheed Martin's Desert Rose deployable satellite antenna. Next slide. And the founder, president, and CEO of the company, Greg Freebury, has stated, quote, anything that went down the full SBIR path has gone on to a full commercialization opportunity, unquote. Next slide. Okay, a few more examples of infusions. A number of technologies that originated with SBIR and STTR have been tested on the International Space Station, on the ISS, and technologies covering quite a range. And just to illustrate a couple of them, a LiDAR system for studying cloud and aerosol properties in the atmosphere, to monitor the effects of climate change. So that's one. Another one, medical application, a system to manufacture multi-layered artificial retinas for the eye. And on the safety front, a fine water mist fire extinguisher that can be an alternative for CO2 fire extinguishers. And a UV sensor for improved detection of oil spills and fires in remote areas. And the application here, although the sensor may or may not actually be used on the ISS, but having the sensor tested on the ISS is a means for validating the technology under extreme environmental conditions. And one final example, a 3D bioprinter that in microgravity prints human tissue, which could potentially be used for applications such as skin grafts and transplants. Next slide. Okay, a little more feedback from recent participants in the program, and just to illustrate a couple of them, quote, without the SBIR STTR program, this would have been a much more difficult road for us to travel. Another example, the technology that was funded under this SBIR evolved into the product that we sell today. And one more example, the SBIR program has enabled a very complicated technology to be developed that, if it were left to private enterprise, never would have been built. Next slide. Okay, where do you start? We recommend that you start by reading recent solicitations, especially last year's 2022's, and it's available on the NASA SBIR public website. Check it out, and that will give you a good idea of the types of technologies that NASA is looking for, both in SBIR and STTR. And you can also scope out whether the technology or technologies that your company is developing could be a potential fit for any of the topics and or subtopics. So once you check out the solicitation, see if there's a match or an overlap between what you're developing and the topics and subtopics in the solicitation. And then the next solicitation, 2023's, that will go live in NASA. Well, NASA headquarters is targeting early January for the release of the 2023 solicitation. So you'll want to keep an eye out for that. Other things you can do, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that'll keep you it'll keep you informed on what's happening with the program. Keep an eye out for opportunities to meet with NASA technical and programmatic experts at the program events website. You can contact a Center Technology Transition Lead. Their contact info is on the public website. And there are 10 technology transition leads, one for each of the centers that participates. And additional sources of assistance, you can also find that link to the website. Next slide. And some additional resources that are available to you. Again, these are all public websites. Some of them affiliated with our program, and some of them affiliated with NASA's Office of Small Business Programs. So within our program, there's a resource library, which is both video and print guidance for phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, and post-phase 2. You can read more success stories. So we show the one from TED-Dig, but there's quite a variety of additional ones on the website. You can check out our blog. You can look through SBA's website to find small business support in your state, and through OSBP, the NASA Office of Small Business Programs, you can check out their website and explore alternative paths for working in NASA, especially if you're not doing R&D. If you have a product, for example, that you're trying to bring to market, that might be a good avenue for you. And there's also the Mentor Protege program, where you can pair up with primes to develop long-term business relationships. And of course, we encourage you to contact us on the contacts link on our public homepage. Next slide. Okay, and just to summarize, NASA prides itself on doing pioneering R&D, and we pride ourselves on being able to manage the SBIR and STTR programs, because you are pioneers as well. And that's, I believe, is it. So we're open for questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carol.
Sure.
So I want to let everyone know that all these slides will be made available afterwards. I know there were a lot of links there, so you'll receive the slides so that you can click on them and don't have to write them down feverishly. And then you'll also get a recording of today's presentation. So I know we got a few questions submitted already. The first one we got is a little more specific to eligibility, but I did kind of want to address it since there might be more concerns about what actually makes them eligible. I know you shared the link for the full requirements, but maybe you can just touch on this one a little bit. It's related to DACA. They say they have 3 owners. 1/3 of the company is owned by someone who is a DACA recipient. So they're wondering at least where they can find out if they are qualified, or someone that can talk to for their particular situation, or if you have any insight right now that you can share about policies as far as ownership of citizen versus DACA type situation.
I'll turn that over to Allison.
Sure. I'm not sure I've worked with that situation in particular, but I know that the requirement is that the company is majority owned by U.S. citizens or permanent resident aliens. So that might be a way to address that situation.
Great. Is there like a specific person or site they should go to ask if there's a very specific situation for them?
I'd recommend reaching out actually to our help desk. They are really good for technical support, but they also, for more specific questions, make sure that they get to the right person. In this case, it's probably going to get referred to our lawyers. Great,
thank you. So this was a question about different requirements under NIST SP 800-171, and if they have to, are they required to meet controlled unclassified information requirements, and if so, how they should do that.
In terms of, if you're talking about putting classified information in a proposal, NASA SBIR does not take classified proposals.
So then I guess, are there any requirements that they have to, I guess, be under for, I know NIST has a lot of, or there's, those requirements that they have to fit with cyber and some of those other things. Is there a certain time frame they have to, are there certain requirements, and is there a certain time frame they have to be able to comply to any requirements like that?
In terms of, I'm not quite sure I understand the question 100%, but any proposal has to be unclassified. And if there is classified information, then Allison, let me know if this is correct, but the proposal would be screened if it contained classified information.
That's correct. You can mark the sections of your proposal that are specific to your business and shouldn't be shared outside, but if it's actually classified, then that will not be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. So this person is asking, when a proposal is rejected, they say they get feedback, but do you have any advice on how to effectively use the feedback that is received?
In terms of effectively using the feedback, well, the number one piece of advice would be to actually read the feedback. I mean, we have companies that every year, I mean, most companies do read it and take it seriously, but there are some companies that don't read it in detail, and then they'll try to contact somebody at NASA and try to get more information, which we cannot provide additional information over and above what's in the formal debrief. But one question that companies sometimes have is they'll get good technical feedback and wonder why they weren't selected, but often there are programmatic reasons which may or may not be reflected by the technical reviewers, where, I mean, there are good technical proposals that will pass technical review, but it turns out that either it's not quite as high a priority, programmatically, and especially in phase 1, where only about 1 out of 5 proposals can be awarded. So there's always going to be more good proposals than can possibly be awarded.
Got it. So this person is asking how they can get early feedback on ideas. And do you accept, unsolicited proposals, or, like going to them with ideas ahead of time? And also, I wanted to add to that, I think there's blackout windows of time you can approach. So can you talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, and for better or for worse, we're getting pretty close to going into the blackout period now, because the next solicitation, 2023, is going to be issued in early January. So a little less than 1 month. We have a little less than 1 month to talk openly. So right now we're still in the open period. So the only thing that we cannot give companies, we can't give companies a sneak preview of the upcoming solicitation for obvious competitive reasons. But we can talk pretty openly about NASA needs and what technology gaps we have in infusion and commercialization and everything. But the only issue is that there's not a whole lot of time remaining. And after the solicitation goes live, we can still talk in general terms, but we cannot give any additional details on the open solicitation. And NASA, the program also does not take unsolicited proposals, only what's solicited through the solicitation.
Got it. Great. And then is there a way to just reach out to different topic authors or anything like that to say, we have this idea, what do you think, or get feedback, initially to see, is it worth my time to apply, that kind of question?
You can, and again, time is starting to run out. But the best people to contact, if you go to the public homepage, on the top of the page, there's a menu bar, and over on the right hand side, click on contacts, and that'll give you a list of people who you can talk to. And the best ones, the frontliners, are the center technology transition leads. And these are people who know their centers extremely well, and they also know who are the technical subtopic managers, and they can put you in contact with the technical subtopic managers who, if you don't run out of time before early January, they would probably be more than happy to talk with you about what your company has, and does it look like a reasonable fit to the solicitation, and they'll talk about, they can give you a little more detail over and above what you might have found in last year's solicitation.
I would mention specifically, I know Carol in her slides had a link to the solicitation from last year. What might be helpful is if you figure out which subtopics you think might be the most relevant to you, and each of those is a lead center listed. And that's probably the best CTTL for you to try to reach out to.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. So this is a question about any foreign hardware that might be used in their solutions. So I guess, let's see, if it's used in phase 2 SBIRs, how often does NASA allow foreign justification waivers?
I'll leave that to Allison.
I know we do occasionally allow for waivers, but it's pretty uncommon. I would say, if at all possible, try and find a source in the US.
Okay. Sorry, I was reading through other questions. There's a lot coming in. So there's a question here about, can a single person business be successful in an application? And if yes, how do you typically see that success coming from, or what's the best way to kind of make the case for the one person team?
So you're saying a one person company?
Yeah.
We've had one person companies get awards, and I mean, it depends on the quality of your proposal and whether or not it's targeted toward a NASA need. But I mean, we've gotten some quite excellent proposals from one person companies. Bear in mind that if you go on to a phase 2, and if you're going to be teaming up with other organizations to develop a prototype, to develop and demonstrate a prototype, you would want to make sure to make that clear in the proposal, that if such a demo is going to require working with a another organization with a larger organization, that's clear in the proposal.
Great, thank you. So this person is asking if during R&D a patentable technology is developed, is there support for patenting that technology by the SBIR or STTR program?
Yeah, Allison?
Yeah, patent support for patenting is one of the things that we offer under our TABA, Technical and Business Assistance Program. The only challenge there is that you do apply for that assistance at the beginning of the contract, but money. I think if you go on to use some of that.
I think you might have cut out some, Allison, if you can repeat the last thing you said. Just me. Allison, are you cutting out? I don't know if it's on my end. I missed the last.
Sorry.
Repeat the last thing you said as part of that answer.
Oh, sorry about that. My internet must be spotty. So we do offer patent assistance as part of our technical and business assistance program. But that it is something that you apply for at the beginning of your contract. So if you go on to phase 2, then you can ask for money for that, for patent assistance.
Perfect, thank you. So this question is about partnerships and if the SBIR, STTR, if it's encouraged to partner with other companies or, I guess how that's looked at.
In terms of encouraging it, I mean, it's not necessarily an advantage or a disadvantage to have a partner in a proposal. I mean, in STTR, of course, you have to have a research institution as a partner. But if you're an SBIR, it's case by case basis. I mean, if you have an R&D partner who can enhance your proposal or enhance the probability of success, then by all means. But you're not obligated to.
Great, thank you. This person was asking what sort of benefits are there for the SBIR company and the partnering company. I think you just touched on that a little bit, but if there's anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, then there's the question about the mentor protege program. If you can expand on that a little bit and if you have any insights into how to find a mentor protege type of relationship.
That program is managed by OSBP. So one piece of advice would be to check out that website specifically, and OSBP will have additional info. They'll have additional details on what the benefits are, how to apply, what companies are in there as mentors, because that's outside of the SBIR program.
Got it. Thank you. So I guess tends to be a question about the timing between when you're actually given or told that you got the award and then when you actually get the money. If you can talk a little bit about what that looks like timing wise.
Okay, I'll hand that over to Allison.
Sure. So from the time when you turn in your proposal to when you actually get the notification, we have at most 90 days. But then when you get the notification, it usually takes around 2 months for contract negotiations. So it's about 2 months from the notification decision to the actual award.
Got it. I guess, can you touch on any differences there are that you know of between NASA and some of the other participating agencies with the SBIR STTR program? I know all 11 agencies are totally different, but maybe there's some big things you've seen that you can talk about how NASA kind of stands apart from some of the others.
Okay, in terms of what other agencies, if you've done NASA SBIR, what other agencies you're likely to be interested in. Often it's DoD or NSF or NIH. I mean, those are some of the ones where people may have both NASA and one of those agencies. Some of the other agencies, such as NSF, they issue grants as opposed to contracts. So, for example, NSF is grants, NASA and the DoD are contracts. And the difference is that contracts have deliverables, whereas grants do not. So an agency that offers grants, like the NSF topics tend to be much more open-ended because NSF isn't necessarily the final customer. So if you submit a proposal to NSF, as long as it's somewhat relevant to the technical topic, the odds are pretty good that they will consider it. Whereas for NASA, you need to be responsive to the specific, to one of many, but to at least one, to the technical subtopic that you're writing your proposal to. And if it's not responsive, you may find it gets screened out. So that's one of the biggest differences. And a lot of the logistics details, like the dollar amounts and the periods of performance, they vary from agency to agency, and the overall sizes of the programs. I mean, like DoD, for example, has a very large program because they have a very large intramural R&D budget that it's derived from. NASA is kind of in the middle, mid-range, along with agencies like NSF and NIH, and then some of the smaller agencies like Department of Education. They have much smaller programs.
Great, thank you. So this is kind of just an area, they're wondering if this area is funded typically, but are you interested in SBIRs in AI, ML, DL, or is that all done in JPL? Is there another government agency that you've seen better for that type of technology?
Well, the best way to find out is take a look at last year's solicitation, and there are a handful of IT subtopics, and so those areas have been addressed in the recent past. So yes, they are. I mean, those areas are of interest to SBIR. Again, I can't give you, and we can't give you a sneak preview of 2023, but at least in the recent past, those areas have been solicited.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you talked about the MSIs. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little more, and if a business here wanted to become one, is there a certification, or I guess, like, what does that look like with the whole MSI situation? Maybe just expand on that a little bit.
Allison?
Sure. So MSI is Minority Serving Institution. So it's specifically a designation for our research institutions. So there's not an opportunity for a small business to become an MSI. I think Carol's slides did go into opportunities for partnering with MSIs. Specifically for small businesses, you can obviously, if you are women-owned, veteran-owned, categories like that, there is a place in your phase 1 application where you'll select a box that designates that. It's based on your ownership, but there's not like a formal certification that you have to go through.
Great, thank you. And I guess along those lines too, do you have like a higher likelihood of being selected if you are, minority-owned business, women-owned business, veteran? You said you check a box, but is that actually looked upon more favorably than others, or I don't know, what does that look like?
We do want to see a diversity of companies in our pipeline. So it is one of many things that we look at when we're reviewing proposals.
Great, thank you. So this person is asking, do the solicitation topics vary greatly from previous years? And does NASA select a company for each solicitation topic, or can 2 companies be awarded in a single topic?
As far as the distribution of the awards, the the awards from previous years are all on the public website, and actually it's kind of interesting. I mean, you can go into the public website and see the distribution, and it varies. There are some subtopics that may get 0 or only 1 award, and there are some that may get multiple awards. So it certainly is possible for, if a subtopic is really strong and got a lot of really high quality proposals that are all high priority for NASA, they can get proportionately more awards to give out.
And in relation to the subtopics carrying over, I think it's usually like 75 or 80% that get carried over year to year.
Great, thank you. I think you addressed this before, but maybe just to remind people, how long are phase 1 proposals typically?
Okay, phase 1 is 6 months for SBIR and 13 months for STTR.
Great, thank you. And then I guess another question along those lines, for phase 1 to phase 2, what do you like to see in order to move forward to the phase 2? What do you see as success that moves on?
So what makes a good phase 2 proposal? Okay, in phase 2, I mean, it's pretty serious money behind a phase 2. I mean, until recent years, it was $750K, and last year it went up to $850K. So it's a fair amount of money that NASA's putting into, it's a fair amount of money that NASA's investing. So we like to see a credible deliverable at the end, a credible hardware or software deliverable. And we also, it needs to be clearly communicated in the proposal, what do you plan to do with the technology after phase 2? Because we don't want to develop technologies for them to sit on the shelf, and we want technologies that stand I mean, there's no guarantees, of course, but we want to know, what do you want to give NASA a nice warm feeling that this technology has no reasonable odds of somebody either at NASA or another government agency or commercial prospects. We want to make we want some assurance that the technology is going to have a future beyond phase 2, and it needs to be clearly communicated.
Great, thank you. This person did want to qualify or clarify that when they asked how long the proposals are, typically they meant in pages. So can you touch on how long they are in pages?
The solicitation is the solicitation will tell you how many pages, and take that number very seriously, because if you don't comply, that can be rationale to get your proposal screened.
I believe last year it was 19 pages. So I can't speak to this year's solicitation, but that gives you an idea.
Great, thank you. This person's just asking kind of overall what tend to be some high priority topics for NASA.
Well, anything, if it made it into the solicitation, we have kind of an internal competitive down select, so to speak, for subtopics getting into the solicitation. So if a subtopic has made it into the solicitation, then by definition, it's a high priority for NASA. But between the lines, I mean, as far as like within a subtopic, there may be certain areas that are higher priorities than others. If you can talk, if you have the opportunity to talk to, if you have the opportunity to talk to one of the technical subtopic managers, you can get some insight from them as far as if there are particularly high priorities, they would probably be more than happy to let you know.
Great, thank you. So I tend to get the question about the success rate. So, how many typically percentage-wise that apply for phase 1 are awarded, and then same for phase 2.
Okay, in terms of percentages, it varies a little bit from year to year, but roughly 20% or so, maybe 25% for phase 1 get awarded for SBIR, and it's a little higher for STTR. For phase 2, roughly 40% of phase 1s go on to phase 2s. So it's a competitive down select, but it's not as severe a down select as getting in the door in the first place.
Great. I feel like we've gone through most of the questions here. I was checking my list too. Let's see. I guess, can you touch a little bit on the biggest mistakes that you've seen with proposals? Just kind of cautionary tales for people.
There are always, we always see some. One of the biggest mistakes is when people don't read the solicitation, and there's obviously errors either in the formatting or in the content. People sometimes leave out sections of the proposal because they didn't read the front end because they didn't think it was as interesting as the technical subtopics. And as far as the subtopics go, we always see some proposals that are kind of force fits to a subtopic, where a company has a product that they have in mind and they're going to try and squeeze it into a subtopic regardless of whether it fits. And that's not a good idea, because then even if it's technically a very good proposal, it's going to fall down on programmatic reviews, and the odds are pretty good it's not going to get awarded. So one of the main pieces of advice is, read the solicitation.
I would add, when you are applying, make sure that you review your application carefully. Every year, I think we get at least 1 or 2 people who upload the wrong document for their technical proposal, which is always really sad to see. We don't want to get to that part of the proposal and have a picture of your dog or something like that. Obviously, we can't consider those submissions, and we know that a lot of work goes into these proposals, so we always really hate to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is a question I've had before. I believe that you have to have 50% of your time or can correct me on the percentage, but for the principal investigator to spend on the small business. If they have a full-time job right now, how does that work? Do they have to have quit their job and focused on the small business, or I guess how have you seen that work out? Because I know that's been a concern for some people.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a case-by-case basis for the company. I mean, it would be like any other additional source of funding coming in. I mean, not necessarily SBIR. I mean, companies write proposals, R&D proposals all the time, and if you have no additional work coming in, I mean, is there any work, for example, that you could delegate to another one of your staff so that you could pick up as the PI on the SBIR? That's probably the most likely outcome. I mean, unless you're a one-person company, in which case you're probably going to be, looking for an additional person to hire. But delegating some of your current responsibilities to somebody else on your staff, that's probably the most likely solution.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that covers the questions. I don't see any others in the chat right now. So I guess we can kind of open it if you guys have closing thoughts that you want to give to our audience today.
Okay, I just wanted to note that Nick has put a couple of additional links in the chat. It looks like they're visible to all, so that's info that everybody should have. And one in particular that I know we wanted to highlight, on January 17th, the program is going to be hosting a webinar on dissecting the 2023 phase 1 solicitations, and that's going to be on the program events page. And the website is there, and it'll include a link to join and more info. And other than that, I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in the webinar, and thank you for all the excellent Q&A as well.
Fantastic, thank you. And we will be sending out a follow-up email today, so we have captured all of the links that Nick shared as well. So we'll make sure that goes out in the follow-up email, as well as the recording and the slides. So thank you so much, Carol and Allison, for being here today. It was really great. Yeah, we'll see everyone later. Thank
You're very
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day, everyone.
You too.